Thank you guys so much for coming out. Thanks to Vendasta for asking me to come in and speak, and to Nakia and Kushba for accommodating me and making sure that I can come and do this and still make my son's soccer game tonight. So I appreciate you putting up with me being a bit of a diva this week. So yeah, my talk today is going to be about customer experience. And how I think that experience is to businesses what branding was decades ago. So to start, my name is Zack Perkins. I'm the design director at Zoo. My past was as a trained designer, did graphic design. My first job out of school actually was for Planet S, which was 2 floors down, so it's kind of fun to come back to this building. I always thought these hallways would be a great place for a party, so it's kind of cool after 13 years to actually see that happen and to come and be part of it. From there, I worked in some print shops. I worked at an ad agency, and about 6 years ago, I joined Zoo and focused my attention on digital design. And then for the last 2 years, I've been the design director, which means I work with our clients to come up with strategy, overarching sort of design strategy that fits with business strategy. And then I make sure that, the project work that we produce aligns with those strategies and meets those needs to deliver real business and customer value. And so, like I said, my talk's on how I think experiences are the new branding. And so when we think of Sorry, that's really loud. As designers especially, we tend to think of branding as logo, signage, things like marketing collateral, and packaging, and these are the things that we design to improve brands. But I think it goes well beyond that. Seth Godin, who is a branding and marketing guru, said a brand is the set of expectations, memories, stories, and relationships that brought together account for a customer's decision to choose a product or service over another. And so I would say if that's what makes up a brand, those are essentially just outcomes of experiences. The relationships, memories, and expectations come from your interaction with companies and your, as a customer, your experience with that company. And so if experiences are sort of that valuable, I kind of wonder why we see companies launch poorly designed, in some cases, ill-conceived and poorly uptaken rebrands that end up failing. Not that I'm opposed to rebranding and redoing logos, I think that's good, but so many times you see a company spend a lot of money. This was a good example. I couldn't find a picture of the Tropicana side-by-side that was big enough for my presentation, but that was a $33 million failure on their part. And I think the reason they fail is because they're trying to redesign something that in the end doesn't deliver any additional value. They recognize there's a problem, they want to fix it, and they say, how do we do that? Well, let's redesign the public-facing sort of representation of our company, but they don't change the experience that people have with it, and thus sort of don't deliver that extra value. So, like I said, I think the reason they do that is because logos, packaging, these kinds of things are easy to see and an easy way to sort of change something, but when they don't bring any additional value, it's a problem. And so the big question is, how do we change experiences that we can't see and are sort of hard to gauge, rather than just invest in new logos? And to answer that, I would say we need to explore experience maps. So I'm sure lots of you are familiar with experience maps, but if you're not, an experience map is essentially a visual representation of your customer or your user. This can be kind of interchanged here. Your customer's experience and interaction with your company over time. And they can kind of take a couple different shapes. This is one that kind of focuses on the emotional side of the experience. So you can see as the experience starts, it's quite high, it's nice and green, we can represent that positively. In the middle, it drops way down, it turns red, it's below this sort of threshold line, and then at the end, it comes back up. And this is a really easy way to see in the middle, there's something wrong with our experience. They can also focus on sort of what processes and actions that the user is taking. So if you want to see, what the process is like from a user perspective, this is a really good way to see that. But in the end, they happen over time, and they tend to fall into one of these 9 stages. So they start with a need, go through sort of looking, making a choice, getting or giving, using, and that can be a sort of a cyclical piece. And if it's positive, they might kind of come back and keep doing that. If it's negative, they'll leave and not touch it. In addition to those 9 stages, there's also these sort of 4 kind of key principles that we're mapping out. There's what the user or customer is doing, what they're thinking as they're doing it, any questions or thought or feelings that they're having as it's happening, and then in addition to that customer piece, also the touch points that they're interacting with. So 3 out of the 4 are all about the customer. 1 piece on that thing, on that experience map, is what the company is providing. And that's pretty intentional. When we're doing this for our clients, we really want to get people thinking about what the outside people are feeling and thinking, rather than start with our internal systems and then force people to use them the way we think they should. So to do this, when we're doing it with our clients and other organizations, what we'll do is we'll bring lots of people together from the organization to start. We'll have people from sales, from marketing, from IT. We usually ask if we can get some senior people in management or VPs, executive levels, as well as any designers that the company has. And we bring those people all together in one room, and we ask them to start with what they know and map this out on these long paper. And we just give them some different sticky notes that represent those 4 different pieces, and we say, let's start somewhere and let's map the experience that you think the customer has with your company. And when we do this, we see a few things kind of typically happen on a regular basis. 1, somebody in the room learns something that they didn't know. It's often an executive who hasn't spent a lot of time talking to customers, but it could be anybody, about the system, about the people, and the touch points that we're interacting with. At some point, some people in the room are going to disagree and have kind of some back and forths about what somebody thinks when they interact with this touch point, how they might feel when they interact with it, or whether or not people do that in real life. And then in the end, I always say, people, when we get this laid out, can identify the opportunity for improvement. And like I said, if you come back and think about why people rebrand and redo design, or logos, pardon me, but don't improve experiences, seeing the opportunity is kind of the ultimate goal that we kind of want. We want people to be able to visualize where the problems are and where they should focus their efforts. So, I would say that all 3 of these things are positive, good things. Having more people in your organization understand the experience the customer has with your organization from the customer's experience, or from the customer's perspective, is a good thing. We're always trying to get people thinking about what people think and do interacting with their business. Having a disagreement is really good, because it's good to kind of hear that. But I always say, if you guys don't know, that's what we need to go find out. And so rather than sort of do a big research and try to discover the entire journey, when we know that nobody really knows the answer, that's where we can focus our research and try to discover what actually happens. And then seeing that opportunity means that now we know where we can put our effort into to improve that experience. And that's ultimately that goal, where we want to start redesigning experiences versus redesigning just logos. And in the end, those things happen because there are no such things as perfect experiences. Even the best businesses who deliver great experiences always find places where they can improve it. You might have a touch point that meets the user's need exactly, but you could always make it more enjoyable or easier to do. Pardon me, getting my things mixed up. It meets their needs, but it could be easier. And when it's easier than your competition, there's still the chance for you to make it enjoyable for them. And even if your entire experience is enjoyable when you launch it, over time, people are going to get used to it, and that'll just be kind of their expectation, and someone can come in and make it more enjoyable. So you need to kind of keep sort of doing this research, looking at these things, and trying to improve it. So that's my talk about user experience and branding.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
That was
thank you.
fantastic. Thanks
Cheers.
very much.